The images in the following program are highly sensitive and may be as disturbing to viewers as they were to us. However, we have to show the truth about animal cruelty.
Informed viewers, welcome to Animal World, our co-inhabitants. On today's episode of the Stop Animal Cruelty series, we will visit with Stephanie Brown, founder and director of the Canadian Coalition for Farm Animals, or CCFA. Ms. Brown, who follows a vegan or animal-free diet, has long worked to improve the lives of millions of voiceless animals in Canada, where approximately 696 million of our fellow beings are slaughtered each year for meat. The Coalition's members include many prominent Canadian animal welfare groups, such as the Calgary Animal Rights Coalition, the World Society for the Protection of Animals, and Voice for Animals, and represents more than 120,000 Canadians. The group seeks to raise awareness among Canadians about the horrors of factory farming in their country and around the world. We will now hear from Stephanie Brown about the Coalition's beginnings and the key issues on which the group is focusing.
In 2002, a number of people from across Canada got together and decided that nobody was focusing on the issue of farm animals the way they needed to, where we would really tell the realities that animals, particularly in intensive confinement, are subjected to. Even unfortunately, the humane movement didn't address the issues head on. So we decided that we would get together, form an organization, and deal with three main issues. Pregnant pigs in gestation crates, where they are in boxes, crates, barely larger than their own body, for their entire pregnancy, which could be 4 months, unable to turn around. The other issue is hens in battery cages. Here's a photo of a Canadian farm that is typical, where 98% of eggs in Canada are produced from hens kept in this kind of close confinement. And the other issue is transportation, where it's legal in Canada to transport cattle, for instance, sheep and goats for 52 hours, plus another 5 hours of food withdrawal without food, water, or rest. So it's 57 hours legally to not provide any water even to animals. So we decided that we needed to talk to the world about this, and this is what we've done.
Chickens are lovely beings that care for each other very much, with roosters being ever vigilant in ensuring the safety of other flock members. Chickens are extremely intelligent as well. Speaking of their reasoning capacity, Dr. Chris Evans, director of the Centre for the Integrative Study of Animal Behavior at Macquarie University, Australia, states, "Perhaps most persuasive is the chicken's intriguing ability to understand that an object, when taken away and hidden, nevertheless continues to exist. This is beyond the capacity of small children." Sadly, despite the fact that they are loving, brilliant animals, according to the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, in the year 2000, 43 billion chickens were killed worldwide for meat. Ms. Brown describes how these birds are callously raised by the meat industry.
So as they've grown from this tiny little chick to 6 weeks later when they're going to be slaughtered, naturally the space becomes smaller and smaller per bird. And so they are quite crowded. And they don't have a lot of space, and a lot of these meat birds suffer leg problems because of the weight. They're bred to have this large breast, and so this makes their bodies sort of unbalanced. Then they're grabbed up when the slaughter time comes. There's people called catchers who take the birds by their legs, hold them upside down, maybe 4 or 5 birds at a time, and they're pushed into these cages to be transported to the slaughter plant.
Ms. Brown describes the typically appalling end to the lives of factory farm chickens.
They're taken to the slaughter plants. Sometimes they wait hours to have their turn to be slaughtered, so they're waiting in trucks all crushed together in these very small containers. The birds are grabbed out of the travel containers and hung upside down on metal shackles. In terms of laying hens, they often have osteoporosis from having the calcium go into the eggs that they produce, so they've got broken bones, broken legs, broken wings. So they're hung upside down and they're passed along into a water bath, which is supposed to stun them. Now, it doesn't stun them in terms of really making them unconscious. It's just to immobilize them. So they're still conscious.
Is this hot water?
It's hot water, yes. In many instances, when birds try to raise themselves, try to right their bodies, they miss the water tank. And so the next, they go to a neck cutting machine to have their necks cut off so that they're bled out. But even sometimes with that step, the birds miss that step, if they've kept their head up. And then they go into a scalding tank, which is to remove their feathers. So birds, in some instances, go through these various processes, all again upside down, and they're still alive when they get to the scalding tank. So they're being drowned in this boiling water.
When we return, we'll have more from our interview with Stephanie Brown, founder and director of the Canadian Coalition for Farm Animals. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television.
The images in the following program are highly sensitive and may be as disturbing to viewers as they were to us. However, we have to show the truth about animal cruelty.
It's an issue that people perhaps don't want to know about, but slaughter is not a nice scene. If you've been to a slaughterhouse, it's awful. It's wrong. I mean, it's just appalling. It's frightening, frighteningly wrong. So people, I think, oftentimes don't want to sort of think about those aspects of what the food has gone through.
This is the Stop Animal Cruelty series on Supreme Master Television. We are interviewing Stephanie Brown, founder and director of the Canadian Coalition for Farm Animals, a nonprofit group actively working to improve the well-being of farmed animals in Canada and to inform the public about the atrocities occurring in factory farm operations. Though we don't think of horses as possible victims of such killing operations, in some countries, horses are regularly slaughtered for meat and for products such as glue. Ms. Brown provides more details on what is happening to our noble horse friends.
There is a big horse slaughter industry in this country. The United States has banned the slaughter of horses for meat. And as a result, there are still some horses that are being shipped out of the U.S. to Mexico and to Canada. Our horse slaughter has more than doubled in the last couple of years because of what's happened in the U.S. with horses. And horse slaughter, again, is a very ugly business. And we've been involved with an expose of a horse slaughter plant in Newdorf, Saskatchewan. And as the numbers increase of these animals being imported into Canada, the number of slaughter plants increases. So now we've got a slaughter plant that recently opened in Ontario. We had one and then it closed, and this one opened in Saskatchewan, and there's one in Quebec. So it's become a big industry to slaughter horses.
Horses are not all protected or looked after when transported to slaughter sites.
They're bringing them into this country in what's called double-decker trucks. And horses, of course, are very tall, and the facilities of the trucks aren't tall enough, so they're driven from Texas up to Ontario. And the entire trip, the animal has to be leaned over because they can't stand tall in the vehicle. I mean, that's just a minimum. And the standard is that they should have tall enough facilities, but they're bringing them into the country and they're allowing it. We're advocating an end to horse slaughter for meat in this country, for sure.
Another problem that many may be unaware of is the danger of fires and the lack of protection afforded to animals on factory farms against this possibility.
Yes, we just recently did a media release, our group and Animal Alliance of Canada, which is another Toronto-based organization, about barn fires, because there's been a terrifically bad record of numbers of animals being killed in these fires. Last year, more than 30,000 pigs were killed in Manitoba alone. And these are in these big intensive confinement operations where sows are kept in these crates, no bigger than this chair, basically, a little bit longer, a little bit so that the sow can stand, but you can't turn around in this small space. These fires break out, and the animals are trapped in these facilities, and they die from the fire and from the smoke. And it's not even a requirement, according to the federal fire standard for barns, that there be smoke alarms or water sprinklers, and we think it should be. So one of the tasks that is before us is to try to get changes to the fire standards for Canada for these big barns. And we put a media release out, and there was a lot of interest, particularly in some of the prairie provinces. Some of them say, well, we can't afford it, but we say you can't afford not to have these basic provisions for animals. And ironically, the people who fight these fires, some of whom are volunteer firefighters, are so distressed by having seen these fires where animals are dying. These thousands of animals at a time are dying in these horrific fires. They need grief counseling afterwards because they're so disturbed by the fire itself and the smells of the fire, of the animals burning, and the cries of the animals.
We salute the Canadian Coalition for Farm Animals for its effort to bring the suffering and severe mistreatment of our precious factory-farmed animal friends to the forefront of public awareness in Canada and promoting animal welfare. Our appreciation also goes to Stephanie Brown for taking time from her busy schedule to inform us about the Coalition's laudable work. Thank you for joining us today on Animal World, Our Co-Inhabitants. Coming up next is enlightening entertainment after noteworthy news. May the animals on our planet be appreciated, protected, and recognized for their many contributions to our world.
For more details, please visit www.suprememastertv.com/stop-animal-cruelty.